Hello, everyone out there in podcast land. Welcome back to Adventure Capital, where we not only discuss the entrepreneurial journeys and adventures with founders who have raised capital on WeFunder, but also the different resource providers and mentors helping founders along the way. Huzzah! In this episode, we chat with Lopa Mersch, founder and CEO at Rasa, a super functional morning brew of adaptogens that clears your mind with calm, jitter-free energy. With over 10 million plus cups sold to 100,000 plus customers, Rasa is giving coffee a run for its money. WeFunder gang, take it away.
Sweet. So really excited to kick off this episode of Adventure Capital. Today on the pod, we have Lopa Mersch, founder and CEO of Rasa. Welcome.
Woohoo! Hi, so good to have you, or so good to be here.
Yeah,
so
definitely. Yeah, you guys have been crushing your WeFunder campaign so far. Just to give folks a sense, you've raised $3.5 million so far at the time of recording from just under 3,000 investors, which is like a mind-blowing number. Congrats on all the success so far.
Thank you. Yeah, we've been floored and delighted at how well it has been going.
Yeah, amazing. Cool. Well, yeah, to kick us off, it'd be great if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit of your personal background.
Sure. So I got into this. This is my first CPG rodeo. I have a couple of startups in my docket. I co-founded a few in the climate tech space, had one exit that was very much not mission aligned. So I'm very well primed to not do that to my own baby. Yeah, I have a very storied background. If you want to hear all sorts of things, cults and, health issues and all sorts of stuff. I have other podcasts about all that. I started Rasa because I had just a unbelievably stressful year in 2015, like one for the record books. I now call it like my own personal 2020, but then 2021 happened and then 2022, I don't know. So it doesn't really quite work anymore. And then I had a baby in the middle of all that. And so I had, this baby waking me up every hour of the night and I was completely exhausted. And when I tried coffee, I wasn't much of a coffee drinker before. It's always been a little too much for my system anyway. But then I was really fried, burned out, just exhausted. And coffee gave me jitters, panic attacks, messed with my sleep even more. And I was like, all right, this is just not going to work. So I looked at all the coffee alternatives out there, tried everything on the market and was like, really, this is all we have. Like we have this whole herbal pharmacopoeia available to us. And I've been an herb enthusiast and studied Ayurveda for many years as well. And so knew what was available out there and was like, so everybody just drinks this one thing that has a lot of side effects for a lot of people. And it's very chemically and physically addictive. And we have all this other stuff available to us. Like, why don't we take that and put everything, the best possible stuff into people's cup? So I partnered with an herbalist, though I love herbs and I'm very familiar with a lot of them. Herbalism is its own field of study as well. So worked with an herbalist and developed the formula and started Rasa.
Awesome. I love that you were like, I've had a super stressful year. Let me start a company and just, diminish.
With a 5-month-old. Yeah, that was dumb. Not recommended.
Yeah, but you had done it before. So I'd love to just before we move too much into Rasa, to hear a little bit about your previous startups. Have you always been really into startups? You always knew you wanted to start a company, or?
Not so much. It was just when I first had an opportunity in business, I started writing grants for someone. I didn't have a background on it, wasn't doing school. I'm a college dropout myself. And I just suddenly was like, oh, this is a world that I know. This makes sense to me. There was something about just the act of producing and learning and creating something. And so I went from the very as one of the early hires at this biochar startup, which is an agricultural amendment for soil that sequesters carbon. And very quickly worked my way up to executive VP and co-founder. And I Googled the shit out of everything. I basically Googled my way through business school and learned a lot, just, by doing it, and got a lot of tremendous opportunities in that space. And it was an early space too, so there was a lot of opportunity. I was in the right place at the right time, and managed to become pretty prominent in that industry in a short period of time.
Gotcha. Okay. Very cool. And then, yeah, I mean, you didn't have it doesn't sound like a ton of background in CPG or anything before starting Rasa. So can you talk to us a little bit about your journey so far?
Yeah. So this has been my first CPG rodeo. I have made all the mistakes, so many. If I was doing it all again, I would be able to do it a lot faster and with just, I think, a lot less stressful.
Yeah,
So
that's how it goes.
that is how it goes. Yeah, there's a lot of learning on the job. There were so
For
many
sure.
times we'd be like, okay, this is tuition. Well, that's tens of thousands of dollars that just got wasted in some way, shape, or form. It's tuition. Yeah, it's been quite a journey. We ended up hard launching the business when I was 4 weeks postpartum with my second, also not the timing that I was planning on or would recommend
Wow.
to anyone ever. I will say though that the herbs that we use really work. And I swear to God that they are the only, or one of the main things that have gotten me through parenting 2 kids and growing this startup. But yes, we'll be turning 4 on April 11th. That was our hard launch date. And yeah, it's been quite a journey so far. I mean, there was a lot of not a lot of things probably in the first 2 years that had I known better, we could have done a lot better and a lot faster. I mean, there's a lot of hindsight is 2020. If I had known, I would have way invested more in our CACs, in our customer acquisition costs when they were much lower, when it was the heyday, and we just I was like, no, I want to be break even on that first order. Turns out that was maybe not the best approach for scaling the business, and we probably could have hit a lot more scale if we had not done that. But we've been bootstrapped up until this crowdfunding, both, basically just injecting the minimal amount of personal capital possible, as we go along. And so it's put us in a very scrappy mentality, and, always having the minimal amount of team and not hiring the best people possible. And so there's a lot of learning there in terms of if you really have a big vision, you should let yourself think big in all aspects. Don't think that you can achieve a big vision with a small budget, with a small team, with small capabilities in terms of the talent that you have, and that sort of thing.
For sure. Yeah, no, I think that's really sound advice. And so how did you kind of start? What was like V1? Was it, farmers markets that you started with? Did you go straight to a manufacturer? What was the sales channel?
Yeah, we were operating out of my kitchen for a while because our product is a little bit complex for many co-packers. So it was about a year. That was part of the delay in terms of launching, why I launched postpartum with my second, because we had issues finding and securing a co-packer. But yeah, we finally did get into a co-packer right when I had the baby, my second baby, and then we pretty much went e-commerce directly. We knew that there was a lot of opportunity there, and because it was unique to our product, but because we already saw we're using very unusual herbs, it's a slightly different experience than coffee, a little bit longer of a brew time than coffee. All of these things require consumer education. And when I thought about, we did sell into some stores, and that was all incoming people from that would heard about us elsewhere. But what I found is I was just like, I can't educate this person as well to educate the customers. And if I have a screen in front of somebody, I have so much more opportunity to tell them all these things. So we focused on digital, got on Amazon pretty early as well, and that's been a really good channel for us, just steady. And just threw a lot of shit at walls to see what sticks in terms of marketing and messaging and story. And my founder story ended up resonating quite a lot. And we really hit a chord with pregnant and nursing mothers, I believe also because of my founding story. And then we were providing a lot of information for how to make the decision if the product was right for them. And that just really, we had this one ad that we probably did about $1 million of revenue on, just because it just really hit and scaled, and the CAC was great. And we were just like, all right, here we go.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the first to second year, we 7x our revenue, and,
Wow.
went from sub 1 million to almost 2 million. And, we're like, okay, I think we've really got something here. So let's keep doing this. And we didn't start thinking about raising capital because we were just like, I don't know, I had a little bit of an internal pride of like, well, I shouldn't need to go get outside money, right? Like I should be able to run this business so it's, close to self-generating. And I think that's something that more exposure in the space would have given me the sense. Once we started having investors reach out to us, and they were like, wait, you've gotten how far on how little capital? Like, wait, what?
Yeah.
What? Like their eyes would pop out, their jaws would drop. And we were like, oh, is this not normal? Like, I thought that's just what you're supposed to do. And they're like, these are very capital intensive businesses.
Right.
So yeah, that was kind of an aha moment.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was taking a look, just kind of the stats that you have on your WeFunder page are just really impressive in terms of how quickly you were able to grow and find this demographic of people that are just like your core target customers, and then, kind of blast off through e-commerce. When did you decide that, okay, it's time to actually, raise some capital? Was WeFunder that first round, or did you, self or get other kind of private investors on before?
This is our first round. I would say it's like a late
Okay.
seed stage. And yeah, we had already done 10 million in cumulative revenue by the time we actually started the raise. We decided that we were going to do a crowdfunding early 2021. We were like, okay, we need to start raising capital. We had been talking to a number of investors. We weren't really looking for capital, but people started coming to us, and then as we talked to them more and more, we were like, wait a second, I think this would be easier with money.
Yeah.
So we decided on it, and we had a lot in the pipeline, and so we were like, let's hold off until we have the bandwidth to really take on this entirely new project to us. We hadn't done anything like this as a team, and so we didn't know how much time it was going to take. We didn't know how successful it was going to be, all of that.
Right.
And really wanted to do it well, but we were really inspired by the ethos of crowdfunding. And since we had such rabid, passionate customers, we were like, all right, this I think is a really good way to help activate some of that customer base. They become shareholders, they become even more better brand ambassadors for us. And so and how wonderful is it that when we do well, like our key stakeholders, our customers are also our investors. It's just, I absolutely love that. To me, it feels like a truly regenerative capital model. And I think it's where we're going to see a lot of, especially early stage capital going in the marketplace. And I'm very excited about that. I want to support that because I think it's good for everyone. It democratizes investing. It gives access to so many more people. So yeah, we're really theoretically and philosophically aligned. And then we started putting the pieces in place summer of last year, and did a lot of work. Like we didn't actually publicly launch the campaign until October, but we were already starting to do our private, friends and family round in July is when we really started that.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I think this has been true for the entire industry, but it's really kind of hard to articulate the benefits of crowdfunding. Like you're not just getting investments, you are really using it as a marketing tool, a tool to engage your community. And so you've probably heard rumblings of, it being kind of renamed the community round. And I feel like Rasa is a really great example of like, how to run a community round, because you guys had such a great network of people that really helped this take off, and hopefully have found some new investors on WeFunder as well, and just use the platform as leverage and as a platform to jump off of. But yeah, I guess you kind of got into it a little bit in terms of staging the private round and then the public round. Can you talk to us a little bit more about how you executed the campaign and a little bit about your strategy?
Yeah. And I get so many people who are asking about like, how did you do this? And I've been wanting to share with them. So I'm gonna go deep on this and
Yes,
share,
the
everything.
tell-all.
Exactly.
Tell-all.
Definitely want to do the tell-all so I can start pointing people to like, all right, go to this podcast so that you can hear all the secrets. Because I want other people to be able to have this level of success. So first, it started with just personal outreach in my network and just reaching out to, everybody that I knew who might be interested in some way, shape, or form. And, had an email that I spent a lot of time crafting that was probably way too long. But it did give a lot of the information. It was sort of trying to preempt some of the diligence and give people what they needed. And at that point, we were also working on our pitch deck. And then from there, started to get some trickling in, and I'm not sure exactly where we were at. We had some people that participated at a pretty low amount, and we had a discounted round for the early bird round. And that was our friends and family round. And then we started to get a couple of angels who came in at like, there was like a 50,000, and then there was 100,000. And one of the keys to this that, anybody who's listening and is doing this themselves, we made our valuation market defensible so that we could get sophisticated capital. And I think that is one of the keys of why our campaign has been so successful, because most investors who really understand the vertical that they're investing into, I think the temptation is that, crowdfunding is a less sophisticated investor. It's a retail investor. A lot of these people don't know what is the normal CPG valuation, what is the normal SaaS valuation. They don't know that, and so you're like, okay, great, yeah, all right, I'll do a 10x valuation, I'll do a 20x valuation. So you see these really inflated valuations, and I think you're really just like shooting yourself in the foot in terms of what you can do, because we were able to raise a lot from people who actually understand our space, from people who can write $100,000 checks. And because of that helps the momentum of the campaign as well. So there's this overarching, we had people on the more sophisticated investor side who were like, oh, well, crowdfunding, I don't really participate in that. Like we were a little bit apprehensive because we had heard that from enough VCs. But then when we actually made our valuation reasonable, and then set up a Reg D in addition to the Reg CF so that those people could participate and be directly on our cap table, then people were like, oh, okay, I'll participate in this. This is cool. It started to become actually cool instead of like, I don't play in that realm. And so I think that's like, if there was one key to success, it's like, understand why your company, what your actual valuation should be. Get multiple perspectives on that. We asked a lot of people who know a lot better than us, like for CPG, for example, sort of the standard range is between 3 and 5x revenue. And, we asked people like, okay, should we be at this point? Should we be 3? Should we be 5? Why should we be one or the other? And we ended up launching publicly with a 5x. And as our revenue grew, now it's at like 4.3x, which is about what we expected it to land at anyway.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
I think that's a super great point. I just want to like reiterate that. I mean, the terms are super important, and you're right. Like there is sometimes a perception that like, oh, these people, retail investors, they don't know any better, but that's not the case, right? Like this is kind of what is changing in the industry. Like investors are becoming a lot more educated on terms that are fair. That's part of what, WeFunder is doing to help educate people as well. And you're right, the momentum is super, super successful, or super, super important to having a successful raise and being able to get sophisticated investors on board along with the retail investors and kind of round out the campaign. I think part of the pushback for folks listening who are just kind of getting an introduction into community rounds and how they work is previously all of these investors would have been directly on your cap table. So 3,000 people on your cap table is super scary. And I think that's what scares a lot of VCs as well with this, type of financing. But since about a year ago, so after you guys got introduced to us, we've been able to do SPVs to wrap all investors into one line on the cap table and pull folks out, as you mentioned, if they wanted to be direct. So it's just a lot more flexible and I think conducive for these types of rounds, which is great. But yeah, okay. So we've got terms. Terms, step one, figure out
Terms.
great terms,
Yeah, figure out
get
terms.
people aligned on board.
Yeah. So that you can go to, I mean, I've had conversations with dozens of VCs at this point, and, you know,
Yeah.
we haven't had any institutional capital participate, but we've had a lot of angels, and one family office. And, you know, we've built a lot of relationships too in this process that are going to help us for when we do our Series A as well. So terms, super important, raise from your network, and just like it's still a hustle. Like, it's not just, I think some people think like, oh, you put it up there and it comes. It's just the same as like you start your business, you put the website up there, you're not going to get the traffic, you're not going to get the conversions, you need to market it. And so this has been the biggest launch and campaign that my company has ever done. It's almost been like starting a new company. Like, it's that level of intensity. And I think that is part of what it is required to make it successful. And so you have to be really kind of bought into the vision and the benefits of what crowdfunding is to actually want to do that, you know, to really take that time to do it.
For sure.
And so yeah, when we were launching through, or yeah, raising through our network, and then we allowed access to our best customers. Basically, we took our first, I think our top, we segmented it out. We started with the top 500 customers, and then a top 1,000 after that. And then we did our entire subscriber base, which at the time was, I think, 6,000 or 7,000. And so that ended up filling the round. So we did these early launches to best customers. And so they got access to the preferred terms, the discounted round. And so then when we started, our early bird was already filled up when we publicly launched it to our entire list. And we had already raised $1 million. And so that was.
And is that when you launched to WeFunder at that time as well? Is you published the page to your network and ours once all of yours? Okay,
exactly.
Great.
Exactly. Yeah. And the page was live, but hidden before that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was the kind of communication you sent? Like, was the email that you sent to your friends and family slightly different? Did you send one email, or was there a teaser? Like,
yeah, great question. Yeah, the email strategy and the communication strategy was definitely like a continual learning process. So we the email, I started with the very long email that I sent that to the subscriber base, and I wanted to start with a smaller segment too, just to see like, how did that land, who's confused, where am I not catching people. And so then I realized, okay, it seemed like some people just didn't quite read this part. There was these types of questions that showed up. And so each email got edited and just rejiggered basically every time we got a round of feedback from people. And it got shorter and shorter each time as well. But it was still pretty long. But I started also with, you know, the transparency of like, hey, you know, I've never talked to you in this way about my business, about the revenue that we have. Like, this is new for me. How is this for you? And I think that kind of engendered, you know, people feeling intimate and like, oh, wow, I'm getting this opportunity to sort of see behind the scenes of the business. And that the crowdfunding has also supported us and has inspired us to become really transparent about our business. We were a little nervous at first about sharing revenue numbers publicly and all that kind of stuff. And then we were like, you know what, there's so much opacity in this industry. Like, why are we not just like, hey, this is what it is, you know, this is the reality as it is. And so I think customers have really resonated with that, like sharing the wins as well as sharing some of what's hard, and sharing, you know, oh, we had to backpedal here because of XYZ thing. I think all of that has built a lot of trust in the campaign process. And also I think it has really been accretive to our brand equity. It's really helped to build brand equity overall. So in addition to those launch communications and the continued communications after that, wasn't just the launch, it was then it took over our entire editorial calendar for basically a month. That was all we talked about. And then the holidays came, we were like, all right, we're gonna, you know, put that to the side for a while so that we can focus on the seasonal stuff. But then we also had investor onboarding emails as well. And that's both giving them their perks as well as we've been framing it as like, how can we crowdsource this business as well? Can we get ideas from our people? Can we get them to feel like they're actual owners? And even if they don't have voting rights on the cap table in the same way, can they still feel like their voice is heard? And so we started surveying a bit more. And we also, in those onboarding emails, we, asked them for like, do you have suggestions for, where we should sell the product? And do you have influencer connections? And, any of those kinds of things. And then we also really encourage them many times to comment on our ads and like our ads, just to help feed ads in the algorithm and push that engagement. So that's been another great thing, is we've noticed a huge uptick in how much love our ads are getting out there from our customer base. Because if you have somebody who's like, I love Rasa and I drink it every day, on your ads, you're on your way.
Yeah, your conversion is probably much higher.
Yeah,
on those. Yeah. Okay. I've got many thoughts, but were there any examples of things that customers kind of were able to help with reaching out, or connections after you asked, or investors rather, not customers?
Yeah, customer investors indeed. We got quite a few. We want you to carry our product at this store, so we got a lot of leads in that regard.
Okay.
And
Awesome.
several influencer suggestions, a lot of product suggestions as well, and we have a list of that. And sometimes people didn't respond to those emails, but they actually put it in their WeFunder comments, like why I invested. And I started realizing that and was like, oh, wait a second, we're not maximizing those. So actually, after we close the round, because it is very full right now, after we close the round, we're going to go through all 1,000 comments and be like, oh, this person suggested this influencer, this person suggested this store, this person said, we've had people be like, hey, I am an expert in XYZ thing, I'm happy to give you feedback on that. So we're just going to go through and see. We've had packaging suggestions,
that's awesome.
Flyer suggestions. Hey, I saw this cool compostable packaging, because just had some of those this morning. Somebody sent me video of, hey, look at this really great compostable bag, and it's by this company, and you should reach out. And I was like, amazing. So, we've just got these people who are advocating for our business on the business level, like not just on the what does this product do for me side of things. So it's been really cool to see. And then from some of the more sophisticated investors as well, we've got bigger value add people who could potentially be on an advisory board, people who can make major capital connections for us and stuff like that too.
For sure. Yeah, no, that's great. I was scrolling through the what people say is always my favorite part, to see their different comments, and it's public. So anyone listening, you can go look at that tab on their profile and see all the kind comments. Sweet. So yeah, you gave us some great tips on, what did work for your campaign, but is there anything that you tried that didn't work that was a good learning?
Yeah, I still have questions on ad spend for the attribution has been bonkers. And so they're like, oh yeah, it's 45 ROAS. And we're like, no, it's not. We know it's not. You took credit for this one particular guy that I closed last week, whatever. So yeah, my jury's still a little bit out. I think it's good for retargeting and marketing to people, in your list, but overall, there's some stuff that I would say we might have overinvested a little bit on that side, and we're going to pull back and do a retro and really get some deeper analysis on it.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, that's something we kind of try and figure out, and it's different for every single company, and it really depends. But I think it's safe to say it should not be like the primary strategy for outreach like that. I mean, in terms of conversion, the personalized outreach and the personalized community is always way more effective to come to the table with.
Yeah. And one other thing that I would say that I wish we had done differently, is like, it went so well at the beginning for us that we were a little bit high on like, this is great, it's all going well. And then we kind of stopped campaigning for a couple of months for the holidays and stuff. And then we were like, oh, we're going to close this round. Oh, we'd really like to, fill it up. Like we should focus, we should do some cold outreach. And so like I started doing cold outreach like a month ago, or something. which when you're closing the round in a month is not, especially for more sophisticated investors, they're like, they might schedule a call a week or two from then. And then, they want to try the product, all the different things. So I would have started cold outreach, like right when we launched, basically, or even before we launched started. And that's one tricky thing. I would say there's not great resources for like, how do you find VCs and larger investors and angels and stuff like that. There are angel syndicate networks, and we've got some decent leads there, but it definitely felt pretty backwards being like, hi, we're closing our round in 2 weeks. Do you want to chat?
Yeah.
But we still might have some people coming in from that. So
For sure.
We'll see how that goes. But I definitely recommend, even if it's going really well from the start, like no matter what, it's going to be a hustle. No matter what, you're not going to be, not no matter what. If you want a really successful campaign, I think, like if you don't need a ton, if if you're just like wanting to raise a little bit from your investors to have some working capital or from your customers, great. But if you have big visions for a really big campaign, I would say like, you're going to be having cold outreach, you're going to be having warm leads, you're going to be like pushing your network. You can't get away from that sales part of the fundraising process. And it is just going to be a lot of work.
Right.
And I wish that I had prioritized that a little bit more for myself all along the way, so that I could have been, just a little bit more front and center. And one other place that I think that I didn't do super great on is I could have been posting on LinkedIn a lot more. It's a really good channel for that. And I did some, but I've been pretty sporadic about it. But I've been, it's busy. There's a lot, but I would incorporate LinkedIn into communication channels for
sure.
For sure.
Yeah. That is normally a good place. But I mean, you haven't needed it. The deadline can also be good, right? Like, I think we typically, like the normal life cycle is usually like spike at the beginning, a little bit of a lull because people who are interested are kind of like, I'll see how it shakes out. We'll see how it goes. And then the deadline, there's another spike because they have to get off the fence. They have to decide, am I in or am I out? So it's almost like an interesting experiment that you're doing with the cold outreach and with VCs being like, listen, I've got this money, I'm closing with or without you. So it's kind of cool that you're trying that, and hopefully some of them convert.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And we're building relationships for our next round as well. So we're
right.
We're very clear, like this has been so great for us that, basically probably every other round that we do, we will have at least something allocated for the community.
For sure. Love that. Cool. I heard the ding a couple minutes ago. You've been super generous with your time. So I'll wrap up with the last question that we ask everyone on the podcast. What is one of your biggest and best pieces of advice for a future startup founder?
I'd biggest and best for any startup, not just for crowdfunding. It's a good question.
Any founder
doing it, know that it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon with sprints in it. And so you just really have to be managing for your own mental health, for your own energy. And if you're not 100% aligned with what you're doing, it's gonna hurt you in some way, shape, or form. So I'm a big fan of the Japanese phrase ikigai, which is like, what do you love? What are you passionate about? What will the world pay you for? What are you good at? And the fourth one I'm actually forgetting off right now off the top of my head, but where that comes together is where ideally your startup should live. And because it is such a marathon, you really want to have that love and that passion for what you're doing so that you can really see it through for the long haul.
For sure. I love that. And a steaming cup of Rasa by your side and get you through everything.
Exactly. Highly recommend.
There it is.
There we go.
I think we have some at our office somewhere. I remember seeing the packages, so I'm going to have to go try some when I come back in. But you can also buy it at wearerasa.com. And I imagine you have a store locator as well where people can find it, or
there's a store locator. We're on Amazon, and if you use the code WeFunder, then you'll get 15% off.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lopa. This has been awesome. Excited to be able to share the tell-all with the world. And we wish you the best of luck with everything going forward.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning into another episode of Adventure Capital. I hope you laughed, took notes, shed a tear, and most importantly, feel ready to go off on your own adventure. And remember, whenever you're ready, WeFunder's here to help. Be sure to like and leave a review, gang.